Ready.
All right, everyone, it's 2 o'clock. We'll go ahead and we'll start this workshop and we'll have a call to order. In attendance, we have Bob, Doug, myself, Ed, and Carol. And the items for discussion is the consolidation of the pond standards, the Gateway version and the Pelican version. So someone is presenting this, Paul?
Yep, so I'll introduce it and then turn it over to staff to kind of explain. So ultimately, as part of becoming one district and unifying everything, we wanted to evaluate our pond standards and realized quickly that Pelican had been operating for many years under a different kind of guideline than what the Greater Gateway side is. And so staff went in front of the Pelican Preserve Ponds Subcommittee. In essence, all we've done is combine the two and made some minor modifications to the operations side of things and what we've had to deal with regards to enforcement or enforcement of our contracts with our vendors. So with that, I will turn it over to Paul and Stephanie to kind of go over what's been done.
Yes, good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. For the record, Paul Flores, Public Works Director. I'm also joined by Stephanie McLean. She's our stormwater environmental specialist. Today's workshop will discuss the surface water system maintenance standards, or what we call as pond standards. And as Chelsea kind of provided the introduction, staff was directed to consolidate the Pelican Preserve pond standards and what we had in Gateway. Although there were two separate documents, I believe they shared the same intent as far as improving water quality and maintaining our ponds. So staff has met with the stakeholders, particularly the Pelican Preserve Ponds Subcommittee, Peter Audette and Mike Hazy and a few others, to consolidate and bring forward what you have in front of you. The past few months we've collaborated and received a lot of input from all the stakeholders. So the draft before you is was presented to the Pelican Preserve Ponds Subcommittee twice, and it was approved by them. So I will now ask Stephanie just to kind of give you a brief overview, basically what's outlined in the executive summary, and then afterwards we could probably go into any questions or concerns that the board may have regarding our pond standards. Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie McLean, Stormwater Specialist. So I'll go over some of the new additions to the pond standards and what might be new to you guys. The big things that got added was clarification on aeration, fish stocking, wildlife management, hurricane preparedness, and then, like Chelsea said, the enforcement. So FDEP, MPDES stuff, all that, Swift Mud. We included why we enforce certain things when it comes to this regulatory stuff. We include a history and purpose, so if a resident were to look at this manual, they can understand where this is coming from, why we have aeration, why we have littorals, and where we started from the ponds. And we got a lot of input from Pelican Preserve Subcommittee too, because they had a lot of history behind this as well. So we got to hear from them. Compliance oversight, like I said, Pelican versus Gateway was operating very separately, and we wanted to bring it together. Our contracts already mimic each other, so now the pond standards is also reflecting that. So whether it be littoral width or algae percentage or how many times that we're doing inspections across the ponds, those are going to be the same overall. Maintenance clarification, there's some drains in Hampton Park that we are responsible for, so we included that in this, so there's that clarification. And then oversight, we clarified that those contracts are different than gateways, so the subcommittee is still taking over that and directing questions to them. The biggest one, littorals and aquatic plants, we specified the 10 to 12 feet max for the littoral width, so the wording in there is a little differently now, and then we included low-hanging branches, part of tree management along the lakes. Littoral requests, we created a littoral request form, so if a resident wants to remove littorals behind their home, there's an official procedure to do that. They fill out the paperwork and it comes to us first. Other than that, In cases where littoral vegetation is not specifically required, we put in here that we may plant depending on if the conditions are favorable in those ponds. So
Can I just ask a point of clarity on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
When you say silent, or where the DOE is silent, or it's not required?
So the wording in this, and that's something for you guys to discuss on where you guys
No, I'm
stand on
going-
that.
You understand what I'm?
Absolutely, yeah. So all we said in this is GSDD may install littorals if conditions are favorable, is all, only it says not specifically required, referring to the DO, but that's up for you guys to discuss how you want to take
So we need to clarify where DOE is silent and or not required. Like, we need to work on that language.
Well, we need, when we get into it, we need some definitions. DO is not even defined in here.
No, and that's,
That needs to be defined, but
Yeah, I don't want to derail us, but I just want to make a point of clarity.
That's gonna be the
the big one is, what do you call it? Growth and enhanced water quality is arbitrary. We can go spend $200,000 to lower the TSI by 1 point? I mean, we got to have some standard here. We can go
Yes, shut the
berserk
door.
spending money and having
has to stay open.
no objective, major objective. I'd much rather see some type of a cost benefit deal done that in addition to this, instead of doing this, let's see what aeration would do. So just
That's up for
this,
you
but
guys
I'm
to
totally against
talk
in cases where regulation is not specifically required, may install littorals if pond conditions are favorable to support growth and enhance water quality. That's very arbitrary, immensely arbitrary.
and we kept it that way so that you guys
That
can
your
make more
negative is
clarification.
shocking to me, but okay.
I'm sorry.
That you're a little negative on that was shocking to me.
Okay, I didn't mean to derail your summary.
That's
so
okay.
if
Let
you-
me finish,
if you
then
wanna
you
go ahead.
can add your comments and questions. And then last things, water quality. We had some new NPDES things that were added that we do testing for now. So we included that in this summary that wasn't in the old pond standards. Fish stocking, that's all based on budget availability. So we just clarified that in here. And then fishing locations, not to fish behind someone's property and things like that. And then wildlife management, we clarified in here that we don't do wildlife management unless it's alligator removal. We have a assigned trapper to Gateway. And then other than that, control structures and hurricane preparedness. So that's mostly the weirs and then storm drain cleaning. So the weirs are, that goes to the district manager and she's the one who says open or close for that. But that's
Hey, just one
a lot
question.
in a little bit, but yes.
On the fish stocking. Every pond in which Pelican stocks fish, we make sure the fish stay in that pond. Is it going to be the same over here? I know we have a difference because of the flowway. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me to put fish in at the top of the flowway, knowing they're going to swim to 6 Mile Cypress. Was
So-
that considered?
On Gateway side, we pick ponds based on what we feel they needs it the most. So if it has good littoral management, and like we did the pond by the pool this year because we know we do the fishing derby there, so we wanted to enhance fish there, or high visibility areas, but we don't have fish gates, so it's not necessarily that we can keep them in.
All right.
So that's something to
Is
look
that-
for later on.
I would
You have
suggest.
fish gates.
Yeah, you got to put a fish gate in, otherwise you're wasting your time.
So I understand the benefit, because if you're stocking fish and you can quantify the value other than just having a good fishing spot, I think we need to look at the cost doing.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't know. what
I mean, if you're fish stocking, you're almost throwing your money away if you can't guarantee that the fish are
That's
gonna
my point.
stay, like to your point, don't end up, somewhere else where, it doesn't benefit.
That was one of the
So that's just
considerations.
That's the consideration.
We didn't see going in, but as soon as we put them in, we realized, whoa,
How do you get where you have 48-inch pipes connecting the ponds? How do you do the fish gates in a 48-inch
it's there.
pipe?
They're concrete structures, kind of like a weir, but not like a weir.
Okay,
And
so you have to
we
build.
built it. We
Yeah,
absolutely
okay, I was
built
gonna say,
it.
you have to build something,
You
because
gotta
just
build it.
our manholes aren't gonna get it. Yeah. Okay.
Open the floor to discussion and comments or anything like that.
Another item under regulatory responsibility, about the 15-inch pipe, we ought to need to say, in addition to Hampton Park, the villas. That's one we took over just recently.
Yes, correct. Good
They got
catch.
12 inches too, or they got some 12 inches also,
They got 15s.
12, 15.
Yeah.
Were there, when you were comparing the two documents, I think you've mentioned some, but the primary areas of discrepancy, what were those?
I wouldn't say that there was a lot of variance necessarily, but Pelican Preserves was more of a manual that they can give to their residents and say, this is what we do here, whereas this is going to be the way that we run everything, and there's a lot more policy and procedure in here versus what Pelican had in the past.
So ours would be more of a policy and a SOP.
Yes. There's a little bit of both in here. There's a
Well,
lot
an
of
alignment of the two
description as well as policy, yeah. So we combine those in those ways.
Ours is more like a how we do it, and theirs is this is what we do.
Yes, so
Why- and
this is
why-
the
and why we
combined
do it?
version, yeah.
How and why, yeah.
And quite honestly, and I think Flavia worked on the original going back a couple of years ago, and they got all hung up in the DOs and procedures, things like that. Excuse me. That was never a consideration in Pelican. We just mandated we were going to have littorals. On the premise that we didn't want bank erosion, that's what we were trying to stop.
Yeah, I think a key item for us when we did develop the standard was where the development order was silent, it was an understanding that there is no requirement for it. And it was a blank canvas. But we also knew at that time that we weren't doing full removals and we didn't know what to expect 3 years down the road after we did those removals. So we had some learning. So I feel like my stance 5 or 6 years ago when I created this with the group, it's not exactly where I stand now. So I think it's learning and blending and allowing time to see what really happens. I do have some questions on, so on page 9, when it says a resident-owned tree encroaches the GSCDD easement, including the LME, and structures require access and maintenance. The cost of that, like we don't have that in the budget, right? And I will tell you, just going by one community, my entire community is underwater. I mean, it's on a pond. Is that going to be something that staff is going to look at and report it? Is it something that a resident can look in and report it? How are we going to funnel this? Because I can see one resident in my community seeing this and say, okay, now you have 15 trees here, they're all need to be trimmed. How are you going to handle that, given that we have 86 communities? I mean, that is a big ticket item.
Agreed. I think part of this too is evaluating, do we own the underlying land? Or is this just easement, and that'll have to be determined based on
But that's not what it says here. It states that you're
Fucking-
going to allow the resident to remove it, and if you
Which page
don't,
9, is it actually the one that says page 9, or is it the one that has the 9 on it?
it's the one that says page 9, 12. So 9 and then 12 is in the board book. So if you go to page 10, which is page 13, it will say that you allow the resident to do it, and if they do it, and we do know the track records of somebody having to spend money on things, I mean, let's just be realistic, then we're going to do it, right? Because we're saying we're going to do it.
So, so how we've taken the approach right now is if the trees are obstructing our access, then we either trim or, we notify the property owner. But this, if you guys want to make it black and white, we can make it.
That's fine. I just want to know the thought process of we're creating something. I'm one never to create something that we can't hold on to because it's words on a piece of paper and it's useless to me. So if we're going to create something, we say, this is what we're going to do. This is going to tie into a dollar amount. And I will tell you, given the large amount of trees and how big they are and how I have visited the ponds many times, you do have issues.
What I would like to see is, in this case and like others, what we have tried to do on this board in the past is to create standards where if X happens, we do Y. However, what we've gained through experience is you can't always do that. Matter of fact, I think the majority of the time, it is not a blanket, if X happens, you do Y. So when we put these policies together, or standards, anytime we can have a definitive X equals Y, great. But we put in the language that allows for an assessment and evaluation and maybe variable outcomes. And the variable outcomes we can, I think we can define through some type of decision tree, but I would like to have the language a little bit more open based on our experience, where we can say if X, maybe Y or Z or, something along those lines. I just want us to be really careful that we don't do what we've done in the past, which is, okay, 100% littorals. Or if it's in the, if there's an obstruction in our easement, it has to be removed, knowing we've gone back multiple times and said, well, this and that, we can justify making an exception. So I just want to make sure we put in language that allows us for evaluation and assessment and then rendering judgment. But the rendering judgment, I think, should be somewhat defined. Like we should have a couple different scenarios that we can fall within, if that makes sense.
So, I mean, I didn't follow the words you were saying. What item, what number was that?
So on page 9, last sentence,
Last
and
sentence,
following to the following page.
Under pond bank tree maintenance.
And the other thing I would say is if we're following this, we will have to start budgeting a certain amount annually based on a best estimate of an average. And if it gets used, it gets used. If it doesn't, it rolls over, which we reassess in the next budget year. Or if we go over, we have to have a contingency plan on where we get additional funding from if we exceed our set budgeted amount. But that's the only way we can do it. We have to put money in the budget for that. If we've
totally
if
agree.
we've got documentation that says that this is going to happen, and based on still the amount of ponds that we're working on, it will occur. And we could probably look at all the ponds that we're going to be doing and say how many are potentially going to run into this, and if so, what do we estimate that cost being?
Stephanie, just last month, didn't we send out a couple notices?
Yeah, I was trying to track where you were pulling this out from, but that's included in our pond maintenance contract. So we did send notices to a few residents that had trees that were obstructing their 4x4s getting through the pond maintenance easement, and they did some trimmings on people's houses, but that was a part of our pond maintenance. It
So
was an
that
additional
is part of the
cost.
contract, and is a new point for me, then I really.
Yeah, I didn't view it as a change. I thought it was what we were currently doing.
I did not believe the trees on homeowners' property, it's something that the contract, that we could pay for it.
You mean you bake into the contract?
I didn't think so, Tony.
It is
If it encroaches into the district easement and interferes with the district's easement, we have the right to expend the monies to remedy that.
We do that with the
Make a motion
pond bank.
For the trees
with the-
inside the easement or outside the easement.
And
It's
I-
only
yeah.
inside, only inside. And I mean, think about the pond bank restoration projects. We've taken out trees and trimmed trees for that. So and Bob, in Pelican, do you know if you guys have any trees that are on pond banks? that
Very,
would-
very few.
Okay.
There are a couple of outliers,
Okay.
but we have maintained that they shouldn't be there to begin with.
Well, and Doug, to kind of your point, if Stephanie's doing monthly checks, we have our quarterly checks, we have our certain criterias on here that we hit those marks. If we have eyes on these, monthly, every other month, every quarter, we should see these encroachments.
You don't
just
get
like-
surprises.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
if we follow the way we have been doing things, we typically have design 12 months or a year before the actual work happens. So we should have line of sight, and we should have an idea for budgeting or what we think should be covered under the contract agreement.
But
So I think we should have line of sight to
Yeah,
it.
and
Yes.
Doug, your perspective is kind of if we're going to work on the pond, whereas mine was broader. It's just all the ponds, and you just look at it.
Understood.
On
The
page,
Okay, then the second thing, I just clarification, the review process on same page 10 of the guideline, 13 on the book. It says also item C on the review process, the pond has no significant water quality issues. How do we define significant quality issues? Are we going by TSI? I would like that language there.
yeah, I agree with that.
And I think we should come up with maybe, when you guys are closer to this than I am, but to me, water quality is probably a sum of multiple parts as opposed to
that's
one,
what-
like,
and
what
that's
we,
exactly
what
what this
Gateway
is.
District considers a acceptable, water quality range is this. It could be, this measurement
and
has
we
to be
have-
within this
and-
threshold, like.
Well, our TSI has that already. It identifies what's acceptable and what's not acceptable numbers. My deal is that if you're going in and you say you're going to do it to improve TSI, how much are we willing to pay per point of TSI? 10,000, 100,000, million?
We've used the Lee County Pond Watch as our, standard. And if we're within the tolerances of what they provide, and we have been, we haven't explored it any further than that.
And I think we're in line with that.
Yeah, I don't know what you do.
Given
I know
that-
where they are.
Given that we just started, you started just doing the math on the TSI, because what I don't want is, we're testing the water and 10 different items and one is off, and then just go ahead and start acting on it.
Correct.
It has to be a balance of, so that's why TSI it allows us more flexibility.
Yeah, you get
And-
30,
and, you know-
60,
you
90
know,
days to correct it, and
You have fertilization bins, so you know there's certain times of the month you're gonna see an
You're-
increase on
that's
that.
exactly
So I
right.
don't wanna go ahead and jump on it. So I just think it would be best if we can add the word TSI in here.
That's going to be our unit of measurement. We should
It's how,
define it.
it was always.
that's the
Yeah.
primary way.
Yeah.
That hasn't
What everybody
changed.
uses.
So we just need to call it out in
And,
this.
and what we
in this
can do
section.
is we can probably say within our acceptable TSI range, I don't even know if we have to
It's
call
not a
out.
range, it's anything between, anything under 70.
Well, whatever that
So-
is.
so-
But I don't even know if we have to call that out. I think we just, if, in the language, we can just say within our acceptable levels.
But the pond standards gives you like 90 days to correct. Okay,
Yeah,
you found it
and
one
it kinda,
month.
a lot of times
you don't
the
react
self-corrects
immediately, right,
itself,
yeah.
like it's, so.
Unless you guys are comfortable, if you want to put the 70,
We can
No, I just
just
say
say,
TSI,
refer to TSI.
because if that TSI
calculations.
formula changes, then we have to change the.
That works to
well, that's
us.
what I was saying.
I don't wanna do
I
that.
avoid putting numbers in when.
No, I would just keep the TSI.
But to Ed's point, that prevents you from throwing a ton of money in something that's naturally going to change in
Self-correcting
30 days.
and- yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I have two more. So on the following page, 11 and 14, so it says, in cases where littoral vegetation is not specifically required, a GSCDD may install littorals if the pond conditions are favorable to support their growth and enhance the water quality. Give me an example.
Well, that's where the wording is a bit broad. In what it's referring to is if the DO is silent, then we'll plant littorals. But not every pond, there are ponds out there that your soil is just not going to support littorals. There are some in Hampton Park that are just rocky and you're not going to get good littorals. So I didn't want to say littorals everywhere because some just aren't going to take. If the conditions are favorable, then we will spend the money and put them in. But that is up to
Well,
you.
This one for
This
me,
is
it's,
deja vu of a nightmare 10 years ago, going in circles, and it's come back again like Haley's Comet. We got a problem in this community. Look at our ponds right now. If you had littorals compliant with a DO or without a DO right now, between the control elevation and 2-foot depth, which at a 4-to-1 slope is 8 feet and a 6-to-1 slope is 12 feet, they'd all be dead. There's no water. There's no water.
Are they dead in Pelican right now?
And the
What are you gonna do?
Well, the-
What are you-
littorals-
Why are you gonna put
There's
littorals,
established.
what are you gonna put littorals in a zone that has no water? And it's not like it happens once every 10 years, it happens every year.
At
Why are
control,
we
do you
doing
have
it?
water?
Huh?
At control, do you have water? Do you have a pond that
Right
doesn't?
now, our ponds right now are so far below the
Yeah,
10
I'm not
to
talking about
12
now,
feet, there's no.
But when you're
nothing
at
would be
control,
living.
when you're at control, high level for the year, do you have water?
Is it at control?
Any pond you want to pick.
Yeah,
At high water mark, is there water?
Yeah, in wet season,
Okay.
we consistently run at control elevation plus maybe 6 to 8 inches, which 6 to 8 inches is a foot or 2 feet up onto the shoreline. But right now, and we've had it now for 4 months, we haven't been there. And everything that's in what you would consider a littoral zone, it'd be dead.
But the littoral zone's not fixed, Ed. That's the difference
Yes,
in the
that's my
thought.
point, and that's another point I want to make.
The
I
littoral
want a
zone
definition of
floats.
what the littoral zone is, because our own DOs and our own designs call it out as being that area that is subject to a elevation from control to 2-foot depth. That is it.
Well, maybe that's what's got to change, because
That's got to
the
change.
littoral
development orders.
floats with the water.
I'm sorry.
The littoral zone floats with the water. When the water's high, the littorals are closer to the shore.
The story I'm hearing
When the
is
water
that the
drops,
littorals, the purpose was for
the
erosion.
littorals will go out into the lake.
Littorals do nothing for erosion. They don't
What?
work. They don't work. When
What?
there's no water, how's it going to live?
What world are you living in?
I'm sorry?
The littorals do nothing for erosion? Are you kidding me?
I'm saying erosion.
That's what I'm
When you
talking about.
have no water and they're dead, how are they controlling anything?
The littoral,
dead.
because then there is no need for it, because you're not having wind that's slashing into the shore.
you're not having waves and stuff.
I'd much rather, that's why I want to see a cost analysis, because the money we're going to spend to put these in, if we're basing it on water quality, then what's it costing per TSI index to lower it?
So
So if we're at 75 and you want to take it to 70, what's those 5 points going to cost? Because I'd much rather spend that money doing something that is engineering proven, and that is put in aeration. That works.
my suggestion on that is it would be remove the word, because you put it specifically that the only reason why you'll
Water
be
quality.
planting is for water quality.
And
And
that's
I
not
think
it.
that's not correct. That's my feedback, because I will say, okay, then there's other ways to improve the water quality. Put an aerator,
What would you suggest?
one.
Page 9, when
Page-
it's talking about
No,
Littorals?
I'm talking about page 11,
I think she's talking about the
14.
first bullet point on page 11.
exactly.
right here.
Yeah, that, I've got a
So
real
it says in
problem with that
cases
one.
where littoral vegetation is not specifically required, the GSCDD may install littorals if pond conditions are favored to support their growth and enhance water quality. So you're just saying that,
I choked on that too.
so I think if anything, establish, I mean, we know everything has to be established at one point. They're not gonna work on day one or on month 3, right? So I think there's a benefit for erosion. I don't think there's a necessarily benefit for a washout, given that the washout comes between the two properties and it's just a volume of water, it's gonna happen. Now erosion, because it's wind-based, you're gonna break some of that by having littoral planted on the right place at the right time, okay? So I would remove the word enhance water quality. And I would be, I don't want to have a fight with every single residence. So I think we could add, in case where the littoral vegetation is not specifically required, the GSADD may install littorals upon agreement with the resident, and that's it. And then just don't add anything else to the water quality, don't add
And
anything.
overall pond health.
Exactly. I'm
I
okay,
think-
I'm okay with that, because
let me
I
just
don't
interrupt
wanna,
you.
I don't wanna add to, and I don't think we will, because the amount of littorals that you would have to plant on a pond to actually move the water quality, it would be immense. You're more likely, what the goal is not to remove it to cause a water quality decline, if you're gonna talk about
And
water.
I wasn't even looking at it as water quality. I look
Right,
at it
it's
as
erosion.
overall pond health and our ability
my
to maintain.
suggestion.
So
it.
I think,
Just remove
I
the
think
water
that, I think the
quality.
language has to be more what Bob is saying, is to enable or to enhance
That's what I was getting ready to say.
pond health or pond, you know, whatever.
Materially
But
and meaningfully
yeah.
enhance.
Where,
That's
where,
what I'd like to see.
where identified or where, but I don't know if I would put anything around residents.
No, I wouldn't
My personal opinion, granted, I know there's some
be
input,
subjective.
but it's not resident property. They don't have any, say-so in
What you talking about?
what happens when, if,
In the pond.
in the pond. I mean, feedback would be fine, but I don't think that any decision is based on any resident input. If the board or the district decides that there's a value and we're gonna put littorals or we're gonna do something else, the residents really don't
But
have any
you've
say.
given the power to the residents to request removal as well.
You can request.
Now, that's kind of a little different thing. I'm still okay with that. And they can't take it all out. They can take out 40% of their property or whatever the number is. Now, if I want to fish or whatever, if, I preserve the right for a resident to have an area without littorals. And it
Even though
may or,
within 6 months, it's probably gonna grow back.
well,
but,
it may or may not, we don't.
but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with requesting.
Yeah.
But that's the only,
So to Ed's point with that is every removal request comes with a dollar value. And so we're planting, we're removing, we're planting, we're removing. So
not on the same pond.
could be if we get
It
different
could
requests
be.
from different
Yeah, but
different
give me an
property
example
owners.
of
Our
where
history
we've
has-
removed and where we've added and removed in the same pond.
Our history is less than 5%.
No, I mean,
No.
that's just
I
doesn't
mean,
happen.
we really know, there are 3 ponds that I can call out, that I know, not the majority, not half, but we have very vocal residents that do not want the littoral. So what I would like to see is remove the water quality language from here. And then to really give the commitment to work with those residents, if there is a need for water, for planting for water, put it somewhere else. Not behind that person's house. That's.
Especially if it's net new, right?
That,
That's one thing.
exactly. That's what I want. I don't want to, at the end of the day, we have the ability to go and amend the development order and say, you know what? 100% littorals, and then do it. We don't want to do that.
Right.
We have that ability. It's our ponds. So I don't want to say that to the resident because, I don't say things nicely. So And I would have said it just like that.
But the history in Pelican, because this was certainly a consideration early on, very, very few, I'm going to say less than 5% of residents object, number one. And number two, I don't think we spend a nickel removing them. Because it's no more difficult for the pond vendor to spray them out in that zone.
I think, Ed, for
Without
us,
cost.
our problem, it was contract management. Our problem was that either it's staff or the contracted, or for me, it's always going to be staff because they are responsible to overseeing the contracts. The littoral band, I mean, I'm okay with 1 or 2 every 3 months coming in and say, hey, you missed this. But is one after another, after another, after another, and then
15, 20 feet.
so
deep.
it's not. It's like if we had, we came a halfway 10 years ago when we did this. And it says, as long as you keep it within that band, the residents are like, I'm not going to fight it. And we said it as a promise, we're going to do it. So honestly, I go into staff. Like I need staff to get that contract and say it. And if you cannot do that and you say, Flavia, you know what, that is not 10 to 12, it's not something I work on it, then this is the time for you to tell me. But my expectation, because it was originally 8, we moved to 10 to 12. You remember that, right? So I don't want to see anything 12. I don't want to see a 12 and a half. Am I going to go measure it? No. But when you think it's 11, you go ahead and trim it to 8.
Yeah, and you also make sure you got the right kind of littorals, that you don't have a 7-foot littoral.
Yeah, we don't have flag.
That again was,
We
spike
removed
rush
that.
is what we're looking for.
Exactly.
And
We-
lower.
We were absolutely, we're in line with that same thing.
So Flavia, are you saying that you want basically after the word to support their growth, you just want to put a period there?
No,
And leave
we're
out
going to
everything?
inject what Bob said, something
case
around
there was
health,
vegetation that's
what it,
required,
health of the
pond.
health of the pond as defined or
Maintain
whatever.
pond
Just a more
health.
of a generic statement that just speaks to,
I like material and meaningfully enhance water quality. In
How
other
you
words,
measure-
it's gonna
how
mean
you gonna-
something.
How you gonna measure meaningful?
How you
Material.
Measure any of
well,
it.
there could be other enhancements too outside of the water quality. I think we just keep a generic statement
You
there.
don't understand, like, we all have very different opinions on this, and I wanted to be clear to you where your 50-50 is gonna go from all of us. It's gonna be up to your decision, but I don't want
I don't want
a
that.
picture.
I don't want that because of historics, and the issue is you've left it in staff's hands. This is before her time, and my understanding before my time even. And a decision is made, and then it comes to the board and it's not supported.
No, the only decision that I have a problem with is when we have given exact numbers and staff does not hold the
Wasn't-
contract to the separate.
didn't do it.
Everything else, I have never
100%.
had a problem with staff saying, hey, we have to remove the tree, and then suddenly the next one, hey, I don't think we need to remove the tree. Because things happen, and I'm willing to change my decision, and we all are, because things move along, and we have done that on this specific topic. What I'm not willing to budge, which is the biggest complaint from the residents, it is the littoral band.
So let me ask.
So if as
Are-
long as you are going to hold that littoral band to that, I don't think we're
Well,
gonna have an issue.
Let me ask. So did we get clarification? Because even my interpretation of what was put, and then you and I had a conversation separately, and then you and I had a conversation separately. And intent, when it was written, however many years ago, and my interpretation of that 8-foot band were different. And that's why I want to be clear from the board level and put it in writing, that 8-foot.
But you gotta go to our documents that built this community, the plans and the DOs. They are very specific.
Yes.
I think I know what you're gonna
Immensely
ask me.
specific. They tell you where and how.
You wanna know, how do you measure? Is that what you're gonna ask me?
Yes.
Where do you measure?
Because on page 9, we have it laid out.
Elevation, right?
The wording is a little
Where the
different
water
here.
is on the bank.
Because there was even confusion when we got a new contractor of where are we starting this band from? And it's either the bank, the control level, the water just, where is it coming from?
Control
'Cause
level,
there-
right?
Control
If you do
elevation is
control out,
everything.
No, it's
you
not
will be
control, it's
wait.
water level.
Yeah.
No,
It moves, Ed.
no.
You can't do it based on
No,
control,
no, no,
unless
no.
you're gonna
Keep
fill it
wiping
every
out
Well,
a
once.
lot
let's
of
just discuss that for a second. There's two options, right? One is control elevation, so it's set always, which means, 8 to 12 feet is going to be different at different times during the year.
Absolutely.
Or I'm sure 8 to 12 will be the same.
No, the control elevation is always the control elevation. That is the elevation
Water
these
level.
were designed at. That's the level of the dams, the 5 weirs. That is the control elevation.
Not in the ponds, Ed.
Yes, it is. I'll argue that all day.
No,
and
the
twice
control
on Sunday,
elevation
you're
is
wrong.
where the pond is at when it's maxed. The littoral
Our
zone
ponds vary
moves.
up and down.
They all do.
Above the control elevation, below the control elevation. But the reason you use the control elevation is you have to have a basis to do your measurements. If you don't have that, you got a moving target.
That's exactly
the
right.
whole
But
idea.
isn't that part, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but let's say during the,
Wet
let's say 2 months into the summer, it gets dry, the water recedes a little bit, and now you've got X amount of, let's say 10, 12, 15 feet.
Well, as the water recedes, the pond is dropping. And as it drops, littorals will grow. When the water comes back up, the water kills them, and it goes back the other way. So it's a constant target.
I'm in between. The problem, again, means and methods on this one. When we stated that we wanted the bend to be to 10 to 12, the contractor was spraying from shore. So what you were having was
Not in Pelican.
control. Well, that's what I say. Unfortunately, it's staff. Control, 10 feet of water, littoral starts. So yes, the littorals were like, for a person that does not know, in the middle of the pond. And then I think we're being really good about using the boat. And when you're removing the littoral, you're not removing from the front because one, you need it there to get that wind break. You're removing from the back end, so from the middle of the pond.
So the
I
pond
thi-
is not overrun with littorals.
Exactly. So the second complaint from the residents were, and then I guess that's what Ed goes, it's like, look, what happened was they kept spraying the bank where we are also fighting, saying that they need to be there to control erosion, but then they're like in the middle of the pond. So I think that self-corrected. I haven't heard anybody else complaining. I know there's a few on Gateway Greens that I visit with you that it could have done better, but I think utilizing the boat means a method, specifically utilizing the boat to do the spraying of narrowing the bend from the inside of the pond, that's what needs to take place. Because otherwise,
And you only have to do that in low water periods. When we're at high water, you can reach it from the buggy. You can reach out from the buggy. That's not an issue. But you're exactly right. When that thing is
Right?
receding, occasionally,
We
you
had,
got to get in a boat and go out and
when
attack
we
it
had
from the
high,
middle.
at control elevation, when we had at control elevation, because it was very easy to measure the 8 to 10 feet, those littorals were 30 feet out. 30 feet out in clumps. And what's causing that is the fact that, one, we're not doing the maintenance on it and doing them timely. But when the water level goes down, like you say, you now have new growth in an area that is not the littoral zone by definition.
then you take it, then you take it from the water end, not from the,
Then they're going to have to go in.
That's what Bob was saying.
so that's what I'm trying to say from.
So it does move.
It does
It's a
move,
floating target.
but we're not going to now spray, so, does it make sense? You're always going to remove it and thin it out from the inside of the pond to the bank.
To the shore.
Never to the shore to that.
I
And that
understand
was
that.
not taking place.
So-
So that's a must, and I don't like to go means and methods, right, Chelsea? But that's a means and methods, it has to be done
Your
that way.
problem is that we don't have a real good delineation of the control elevation around our ponds.
100%.
So unless you're looking at the weir and you see that it's at the weir, which then defines that surface as the control elevation, it's a no-brainer. But when you drop a foot and you're on a 4-to-1 slope, that's 4 feet out. You drop 2 feet, and now you're 8 feet out. And if you're on a 6-to-1, you get out 20 feet. That's our problem. And I think when somebody did this and designed this years ago, they did, our drainage basin is next to nothing. We have nothing above us providing water. So when we get dry, we get real dry because there's no supplementary water coming in. And so it drops quickly. So what we have is this ride of 2.5 feet. Well, 2.5 feet times 6 goes way out. And they never took that into consideration.
Here's a great example of what I'm talking about. Have your
Yeah.
embankment,
Yeah.
then you can tell where you're spraying, and then you can tell where your bend is. Because you were spraying it from here. Now, if you start spraying it from here, this bend will never get wide enough, and you protect the bank.
Yeah, I think it's growing that way because
Well,
all your
this
torpedo
is not
grass
a
and
really good
alligator
picture
weed.
because I can see nothing but elusive stuff on the other end. I'm trying to just focus on
My
one
deal
thing.
is, why is it there?
Don't make me pick on the picture.
You know, the other part is we have some very shallow lakes in Pelican. I don't know how shallow you are. But
they're-
when you get a shallow lake, the opportunity for the littorals to go shore to shore
That's all
is
I
very
Com-
real.
Combination shallow lake and real flat slope. Those two are killers.
Can you look at the beneficial plant? Is that where you were trying to point to earlier?
Yeah.
Can you please read that and just make sure that that captures
Page 9/12,
and make sure that,
the middle of the screen, page 9, it's printed page 9, but it says 12 in the corner.
Where now?
Where, but exactly.
Beneficial
Here,
Under-
it's right in
bullet
front of
point
you,
under
right
maintenance.
here.
Third, yes, the third.
This right on your screen, right in front
beneficial
of you.
plant. and-
Plant management.
Interested.
I've had a question mark on that.
Okay, we only have kidney filters and gateway greens, right?
Golf course.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the
And
only.
those are all delineated.
Yeah, so I think there's 5, or maybe 6 total. I don't think we even have that many. Okay, the only thing that I would make sure, fire flag, that it's absolutely gone.
I'm
And we
not-
have been, like, 10 years ago, we had it all over. And I would say the contracted at least with that, because the pond by 7-Eleven, like, that was nothing but this, and it's really good.
I hate these. I hate these. The kidney,
The kidney.
Kidney filters?
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
right
hate
now,
Why,
they
is it
look
a
horrible.
dolphin issue?
They look horrible.
I would neither
So can you just,
acknowledge or
can
deny
we,
that.
can we take a second to read this and make sure this captures what you just discussed?
Totally ignorant. What's a kidney filter?
Ugly.
It's like a little belly on a pond that you have 100% littorals. You don't do any maintenance there because they're used to enhance the water quality.
Next time you come to my
Yeah.
office, I'll point one out the window.
Okay.
And it's kind of what we use the ponds on the FPL easement. We use those, they're not, but we use the pond as 100% like, because we said, leave the littorals there, growing as much as
Kinda
you
like a
want.
conservation area?
100%.
Historically, it's
Yeah.
where the alligator flag has grown. It's been horrible. I mean, there's been times where it's 4 or 5 feet high. And if you're on the 9th tee, for example, you can't see the fairway. It's that bad. But those are defined. I'm not even gonna argue those. Those
Yeah,
are
we know that.
defined.
We're clear on that.
Our problem has been
There's another.
I'm gonna say 10 years ago, L took this on, went out to the 9th hole and tried to rejuvenate that thing, okay? Died within 4 months. Combination, either the fish eating your plants or no water.
So there's another
It was a waste of
littoral that we
time.
use, they are flower littoral, I forgot, usually I'm pretty good with the plants, but I have a headache. So we are on Gateway Greens, the one that we're having issues, what is the name of that plant?
Crush,
No,
arrowhead, pickerel weed. That you're having issues with?
I think it's too tall. It's not as tall as the fire flag, but you know what I'm talking about? It's it starts with a G, I just can't. I know.
Canna.
Canna, there we go. I would also refrain from planting canna. While it's beautiful,
Yeah.
the
You don't
canna,
typically plant that one
that,
for
yeah,
that
but we
reason.
have in the past. So
it's pretty.
you know what I'm talking about, the canna flower?
I don't know
Yeah,
what
I'll
that
show
is.
you.
It might be what you're talking. It's on the 9th hole.
It is,
All I know is that where we have these littoral zones on the golf course, they are an eyesore, absolute eyesore.
the canna's
Well,
not so
only
much
that,
as I saw, but
it's-
it is a
the-
blocking.
The majority of the year, it's slush and it's just, I mean,
Canna
it's,
lily.
it's for bugs and, you know,
It's sad.
aesthetically, yes, but also, I always feel like it's just a haven for mosquitoes and because there's a little bit of standing water, it's never fully dried. I wish we'd do
I'm
something
talking
else
about,
with it,
do you
just
wanna
dig it out.
Do you want us to also eliminate this?
You've got those
I
on
know.
next to the 9th green in
That's what I'm
that
talking
little
about.
valley that goes
Yeah.
up between the green and the pond.
Okay, so that would be, I care less, I don't play golf, but
Fill it in with that?
no, not, because this is really tall. This is 4 to 5 feet tall.
That's,
This,
it's
the
not the
difference,
line of play, so
the
it's,
difference between fire flag and this, fire flag is ugly when it dries. It looks like sawgrass, it looks horrible.
And that's what's ugly anyway.
It's ugly from the beginning to the end, to all stages. This, it's a flower, however, it's really tall, so it does block
we've
the
got this
view.
next to the
Yeah, yeah.
second tee.
I would add that into not, you know what I mean, as a littoral that you wouldn't add to the bank.
You want it taken out.
When it dies, I wouldn't use that as a replacement. Besides, they're bulb, like the root system is very fine. I know about this plant.
They're in the water, correct?
Really.
Yeah, yeah, but just let's not add it. Like, if we have to add this plant, let's.
Well,
let's do that.
that's what I'm trying to
Usually
get. Is it in the
plantings
bank or is it in the
face-
water? If it's on the bank,
It's in the bank.
well, if it's in the bank, then I would support whatever you want to do. If it's in the water,
No, it's not in the water, because it doesn't really grow
on
in
the
the
bank,
water. It's in the bank. So that's it. I would refrain from planting that, because it is really tall.
And I have a different
You
subject.
want
Are we
to
ready
add that
switch gears?
after fire flag.
And Canna Lily, yeah.
is that thalia? Is that what we're talking about, thalia?
Talia is fire flag.
Our flag, yeah.
Or anything else for the
Anything else
I don't
have
have
a
any- I
different?
don't
Yeah,
have
I got another
anything else.
item, page 6, paragraph C, and this can be, I just found out about this recently. Stormwater infrastructure within Gateway, HOA. GSCDD is responsible for maintaining all GSCDD stormwater ponds, conservation areas, area.
Well, not all.
We found out that's not quite true.
Dairy Greens.
That's true, yeah.
How many places, and Tony's the only one I know that would know this, how many other places have entered into agreements like the Club at Gateway to maintain wetlands? It should have never been done. I don't know why and how that ever happened, but
Somebody other than us is maintaining a wetland?
yes. And it was negotiated in 2010, the year after I left the board. And I think what happened was is we had a president that didn't know what the hell he was doing. And he caved in to somebody. But right now, as I understand it, and Tony, you've got a copy, and you showed me the document, and it basically indicates that when you're on the golf course and you're on say, the 6th tee, and you look to the green, the club or the contract delineates that wetland, which used to be number 48, it's now 41, into two pieces. Everything to the left of the eyesight is the clubs to maintain. Everything to the right is the clubs. Go to hole 7, same thing.
Well, stay right there,
Eyesight-
stay on that one. So if there would be a violation in that area, there could be 2 people that are held accountable for violating it?
It shouldn't be. It should be whoever has the
Well,
permit.
A good example is just this week, because the club found out about this. They've had a company in, I don't know who the company is, maybe you know, but they took out essentially all of those exotics that were in that deal, and they had truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of exotics.
Under the supervision of South Florida Water Management?
I don't know who was watching them. I assumed that we had people over there, but I told them when they said they were going to do it, and I found out about this contract, I said, you better get somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, because this is deja vu 14 years ago when we had the big.
So, Ed, are you saying that we shouldn't have those agreements in place?
Well,
That if it's,
The club should have never agreed to that agreement.
That
That's my
agreement
point.
was a product of the enforcement action by South Florida against the district for a vendor going into the wetlands and damaging the wetlands on the golf course.
That was the one when they did
That's
it with the
exactly what
track
my
vehicle.
concern is. Go ahead.
And so the district, this district was brought to task by South Florida, and the concern was, at the time, those conservation areas, 47 and 48, were not platted conservation easement areas. It's under the old, was under the old permitting way back in the 80s, when conservation areas were delineated on permits, but not necessarily recorded conservation easements. So the issue became, the district's our district's response was, we weren't the vendor. The vendor was a vendor hired by the golf club to do particular work along the golf course. That vendor went into the conservation areas, caused rutting, caused damage. South Florida says, we don't care.
Right.
You're the permit holder. So we ended up with a multi-month negotiation, in fact, at the board, to resolve the compliance enforcement action by South Florida
My
and
point
the
was-
agreement as to who was going to be
You
responsible.
can't give that away.
No,
My point is that we've got a contract that is not in agreement with this. The club is an exception.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that again, because again, the agreement delineated who's responsible for what sections. That was part of the whole big old global compromise of all the issues.
Where I was going
I mean,
is
that cost the
that-
district over $140,000.
So we got to reconcile that, to your
what I was
point.
trying to figure out is, are there other agreements like that anyplace else where we have negotiated with an owner? For example, that wetland that conservation area, 41 and 42 now, are owned by the club. They're owned by the club,
Yeah, there are
but
other ones.
they're under
in
our
Pelican.
responsibility.
Are they owned?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, but there's easements. I think that
And
was
so
part
are
of
the
the issue
ponds.
also. I'll have to go back and resurrect all that. I mean,
The pond, the club, back years ago, I told them, when the HOA, we had like 30 ponds that you worked with us and our attorney.
Yeah, Charles
To get
Mann.
rid of those, to get rid of those ponds and transfer them over to the CDD.
with,
I wanted the club to do the same
With
thing.
Chris
I said,
Shields at the
why do
time.
you want to own these lakes and these wetlands? Why do you want to own them? They thought that it would be advantageous. I said, all it's got is nothing but liability. Well, now, apparently, I didn't know it, you didn't know it, we find out that this contract exists that basically said the club is now responsible because we were asking the CDD to come in and remove those exotics. And somebody produced this contract that says, club, you got to do it.
Maybe we got to change the contract.
Yeah, I think.
Well,
it's
can we, because
side-
we only have
side on
7
that.
minutes left. I think this is
Yeah,
more
I
conversation.
think what
Can we
might be helpful
table
is-
this item for,
Yeah.
for additional discussion? Because it's
And I
going to
think
take
what might
more
be
than
helpful
7
is
The
minutes.
big thing, I just want to make sure that we don't have something in here,
Or
because the
all.
club's going to come back and say, hey, if your pond
And if we
standard
do, we
says
need
that
to
you
legally
own it,
address
what am I
that.
doing?
You're right. If
If
we,
it
if
says
it is.
all, then it
How
should,
did
then
it-
it should be unless otherwise specified through blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Okay.
Any other comments for
Yeah,
the
I have
pond
one.
standards?
So there was, when we're talking, you had mentioned something early on about fishing.
About what?
About fishing. From what I understand, the district allows fishing on our ponds, within our pond easements. Is that a correct
As long as
statement?
you can, there is a policy that is out there. I don't know if this board ever adopted it or not formally or not, but there is a policy out there that, yes, fishing is permitted as long as if you're a property owner, you access it directly from your property, but you cannot go on other people's property to access said pond.
Okay, so
Common area.
if I'm fishing on a pond and I've accessed that pond through a common area or not a residential property, and I stay within the easement of that pond,
No.
That's not
The
mine.
easement
The
is for
pro-
maintenance of the
that-
district, it's not easement
And
for
the
the.
easement may
Easement
be
is an
on-
easement, not ownership.
Yeah.
And the easement
So
may
you're
be
going, you're
on,
trespassing on people's property.
yes, an easement may be encumbering private property.
we're saying the property line goes to
It
high
could go
water
to
line?
the- it could go
Okay,
into the water.
and then we have our
as well.
easement.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
That's specified in here as well.
okay,
It
just
is,
want to make sure
yeah.
that that's,
I did highlight one more thing and I forgot.
Yeah, I've got something too when you're done.
On page 5, so page 5 of the document 8 on the agenda, it says recreational use of such as swimming, canoeing, kayaking, or stand-up paddle boarding and stormwater is prohibited. That goes to my point of right here, the activity that we hold on Pond 90, that needs to be removed.
Power boats?
Yeah,
We specifically voted on
We
that.
do not hold that activity.
but we are not responsible for the
Standard,
pond.
yeah.
I'm saying we don't host it.
Just do it with an exception.
Our permit does not allow for that. Our permit for that, our stormwater ponds does not allow for that. If we want to do it, no problem, amend it.
Are you doing, you're not talking fishing?
No,
No,
talk
I'm
power
talking
boats.
about power boats
Oh,
over
I see
here.
what
Over
you're
here in
saying. I'm sorry,
Sherman.
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
it's a recreational use, so I don't have a problem. If we want to do it, amend it to allow maybe just on this particular pond. But you cannot have a document that says you're not allowing for this, but then you're doing on the pond that it has no residence, no nothing, it's the pond that it's in front of our building.
so Tony, I think the
right.
amendment, because this, even what we're calling out is, this is.
It's anything, actually.
It includes individuals
Yeah.
or people swimming, canoeing, paddleboarding, where it puts the individual inside the pond perimeter. Whereas what we're talking about is unmanned,
Understand.
whatever the
I
language is.
remember the lyrics about the
but-
dock and
but-
everything else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think there should be, we should specify a size in there.
We
If we are
don't-
talking about,
We don't get to do that because our permit is what dictates that, and our permit is very clear.
Change the
They
permit.
are
that's what we're talking
storm-
about, changing the.
So you're saying, it was,
You're gonna change the permit criteria, our permit criteria, you're gonna go to,
We're going to give an exception.
no, the question is, is it in a South Florida permit
It
or in the
is.
Lee County deal?
it is,
Then the
not
question
a
is,
DO,
well,
I'm
then,
talking about Southwest
okay,
Florida.
and then the
permit.
question becomes,
So
what do
you
they,
cannot,
what does South Florida define as recreational purposes.
And we went back and forth with previous staff, and unfortunately, while that is a nice activity, that it is recreational. They were very clear.
South Florida
Jennifer
was?
very clear. It's a stormwater retention pond. The purpose of it is for what we.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what we stated on this document, the three things that are here: enhanced water quality, no flooding, and
So you're
something
saying,
else.
we have no way out unless we change the permit.
Well, let
Yeah,
us,
you-
because this is just a workshop, let us go back and research that and bring that
It's
back
worth
in
doing.
front of
We
you
ought to
all.
pursue it. We either can or can't.
Yeah.
If we can, then we'll change it. If
And if
we
we can't,
cannot,
then we tell them no
know
more.
that they need to
Then
be
we enforce
notified
it.
we're not doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I have one other thing, and we don't,
And I
there's
promise
not
the last one
a
I
lot
have
of
to-
talking here, but talk about aeration. I feel very strongly that we should not put aeration in a pond that is part of the flowway. The purpose of the aeration in Pelican was multi-purpose. We were trying to avoid future dredging requirements, and we were told that if we put in aerating, we could extend the life of the pond, and we're talking about pond bank, by 25 to 30 years. The other purpose was improve water quality and stop fish kills. So we wanted to do that versus fountains and things like that. But the flowway is very, very different because that runs from point A to the Gulf, taking a liberal interpretation. So you can't influence that. That water is always going to be flowing out of here. So to me, it seems like a waste of tough taxpayer dollars to aerate anything that is flowway. Any pond that's feeding the flowway, absolutely. We want to aerate that.
Is that just based on your personal opinion or think something,
Well, I
any
mean-
study or anything that says
That's what I'm saying,
aeration
just
and
The purpose
and
of
flowway?
the purpose of the one of the purposes is to prevent the dredging. Well, you don't have to dredge the flowway per se, because it's constantly moving. So why would we want to spend good money there? You may get there eventually, but let's start with the ponds that are going to benefit the most.
Where you have the problem is in the flowway, because that's where all the material has come and settled out. And we have no idea. We've never done limited bathymetrics to know what we've actually got. But I'd like to have a professional, and in fact, go one step further. On this deal, there is a section on aeration. I'd like to create once and for all, if we're going to do this, let's do it all, not do it half-assed. Let's have an aeration plan that we've been talking about this for 5 years and we
We got a
haven't
workshop
done
next month
squat.
on it.
Huh?
We got a workshop next month on it.
But we've
Oh, the
got to-
aeration
we've got to
workshop
come
is
in,
different?
But that would be
Oh,
one
I'm
of the
sorry.
things,
I
that would be
jumped.
one of the things we look at, would be trying to determine what are the ponds that need to have aeration, which my opinion is all of them, but what's the order? Because we're not going to do all the work at one time. That
It's
ain't
too
gonna happen.
expensive.
100%.
You're talking about probably $20 million. We're not going to do that.
Well,
So it's going to
Pelican
be
will do it. We'll
over
do it for
time, so
3.
where do we get our best bang for the buck of what ponds do we do? We need a plan. We don't have a plan.
We'll have that workshop next month.
Great, okay.
I agree
Enough
with
said.
that. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Stephanie and Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Good
Great,
work.
great
And
job.
Timing.
Good job.
Pelican Pond Subcommittee, PPAC, and everybody contribute to these updated pond
Thank you.
standards, so.
Thank you.
It's actually one of the better conversations we've had around pond standards, to be quite honest.
This whole deal has
Less
history, lots of history.
Yes, it was very mild.
Roll right into the regular meeting or take a
Do you
minute?
want to take 2 minutes?
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
I need to
let's
get
go
a
ahead and
coffee.
recess for 2 minutes and we'll start the